There comes a moment in life when you realize that your silence is louder than your words, when walking away says more than staying ever could. We spend years trying to be seen, trying to be understood, trying to make anyone value what we bring to the table. But sometimes people can't see your worth until you stop handing it to them for free. And that moment, my friends, is when the story changes. When you walk away, you don't lose. You reclaim your energy, your peace, your self-worth. And suddenly, the person who ignored you starts searching for you in every corner of their life, because your absence becomes the mirror they were too afraid to look into. So let's talk about what that really means and how walking away can become the turning point that redefines your strength, your boundaries, and your power. When you walk away, it's not an act of defeat, it's an act of courage. It's not about quitting, it's about choosing yourself after realizing that staying was costing you your peace, your energy, and your identity. We're conditioned to believe that walking away is weakness. That strength is measured by how long we can endure, how much we can give, how much pain we can absorb. But that's a lie we've been taught by a world that confuses suffering with loyalty. True strength isn't in holding on to what's breaking you. It's in knowing when to release what no longer aligns with your growth. There's a deep, silent power in that moment, the instant you say, enough. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. Because clarity doesn't come from chaos, it comes from stillness, from the quiet realization that your worth doesn't need validation from someone who can't see it. When you walk away, you're not abandoning anyone, you're returning to yourself. You're saying, I refuse to beg to be seen. I refuse to chase love that should flow freely. It's the beginning of self-respect, the point where your heart catches up with your truth. You stop measuring your value by someone else's ability to recognize it. You stop trying to earn love through effort and start allowing love through alignment. That shift changes everything. And yes, it hurts. It hurts because you gave. It hurts because you hoped. It hurts because you stayed long enough to believe things could be different. But the pain of walking away is the pain of healing, the kind that builds strength, not the kind that destroys it. Staying in a place where you are unseen, unheard, and undervalued is far lonelier than standing alone in peace. Walking away teaches you that solitude is not emptiness. It's space, sacred, necessary space to rebuild, to breathe, to rediscover who you were before you started shrinking for someone else's comfort. The moment you walk away, you begin to see how much of yourself you gave away in pieces. You start to notice how often you silenced your voice to keep the peace, how many times you accepted less because you feared being alone, how long you carried the weight of someone else's blindness. But now, every step away becomes a declaration, I am enough even without you. And here's the truth, the people who took your light for granted will feel the absence, not because you wanted revenge, but because absence has a way of revealing value. When your presence is no longer a given, it becomes a gift. And that's when they finally start to see what they were blind to all along. But by then, you're not the same. You've grown past needing their recognition. You've realized that you were never hard to love. They were just too distracted to notice how rare you were. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. It teaches you boundaries, not walls, but doors that only open for those who knock with respect. It teaches you patience, the kind that trusts that what's meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to keep it. It teaches you self-worth, the understanding that love should never cost you your sanity. So no, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the wisdom to know that staying small for someone else's comfort is not love, it's self-abandonment. And when you stop abandoning yourself, everything changes. Your energy shifts, your standards rise. You begin to attract peace instead of chaos, clarity instead of confusion, and love that feels like home instead of a battlefield. Because in the end, walking away isn't the end of your story. It's the moment you begin writing it with your own pen. Absence reveals value. It always has, and it always will. When you're constantly available, constantly giving, constantly showing up for someone who doesn't meet you halfway, they forget that what you offer is rare. Familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort can easily turn to blindness. People stop seeing what's in front of them when they believe it will always be there. But when you walk away, when your voice no longer fills the silence, when your energy is no longer there to catch their falls, that's when reality hits. That's when they finally feel the weight of your presence through the ache of your absence. It's human nature. We often don't recognize the warmth of the sun until we're standing in the cold. The same happens in relationships, friendships, even workplaces. When you give without boundaries, others start to think your effort is endless, your love is guaranteed. They forget that your consistency comes from choice, not obligation. But the day you decide to pull back, to step away, to reclaim your space, that's the day your absence becomes louder than all the words you ever spoke. And here's the beautiful irony, your absence teaches them what your presence tried to show them all along. It teaches gratitude. It teaches awareness. It forces reflection. They begin to replay the moments they overlooked, the kindness they dismissed, the effort they never thanked you for. What once felt ordinary suddenly becomes priceless because it's gone. But this isn't about punishing anyone or proving your worth through silence. It's about understanding that your value doesn't increase or decrease based on someone's ability to see it. You've always been enough. Your absence doesn't create your worth. It simply reveals it to those who were too distracted, too careless, or too comfortable to notice before. Sometimes, the best way to show someone your importance isn't by speaking louder or trying harder. It's by stepping back and letting the silence do the teaching. Because when you're gone, your energy lingers, your impact echoes. And the ones who once overlooked you finally start to realize that what they lost wasn't replaceable. Absence doesn't just reveal value, it defines it. And once you understand that truth, you'll never fear walking away again. Your energy sets the standard, always. The way you show up, what you allow, what you accept, and what you walk away from, all of it teaches others how to treat you. Most people don't even realize that their energy is communicating louder than their words. You can say you want respect, but if you keep accepting disrespect, your energy tells a different story. You can say you value peace, but if you keep entertaining chaos, you're teaching the world that your boundaries are negotiable. Every relationship, every interaction is an exchange of energy. When you constantly give without balance, people begin to expect that from you. They stop seeing your effort as a gift and start treating it as a given. But the moment you shift your energy, when you start protecting your space, when you stop explaining your worth, when you choose peace over approval, the entire dynamic changes. People feel that shift. Some will resist it because your new boundaries expose their old behaviors. Others will rise to meet you because they recognize the power of your growth. Setting the standard with your energy isn't about arrogance, it's about alignment. It's about knowing that your energy is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it. When your energy is grounded, confident, and clear, it becomes a filter. It naturally removes those who drain you and attracts those who uplift you. You don't have to chase or convince anyone. Your energy does the talking for you. And this is where true confidence lies, not in being louder, not in proving your worth, but in being so centered in your truth that you no longer compromise it for anyone. When you walk into a room, your energy tells people how to treat you before you ever say a word. That's the power of self-respect. The more you honor your energy, the more you'll notice how your world begins to shift. Conversations change, connections deepen, peace replaces confusion, and suddenly you're not chasing validation, you're attracting alignment. Because at the end of the day, the standard isn't set by what you demand, it's set by what you allow. And when your energy reflects self-worth, the world has no choice but to rise to meet it. Pain becomes power when you decide to use it. Everyone experiences pain, heartbreak, betrayal, disappointment, loss, but not everyone transforms it. Most people run from it, numb it, or pretend it never happened. Yet, pain has a strange gift hidden inside it. It forces you to feel, to face, to grow. It's the universe's most uncomfortable teacher, but also its most honest one. When you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? Everything begins to shift. Pain is not a punishment, it's a message. It's telling you where something is broken, where you've been settling, where you've been ignoring your truth. It's the fire that burns away illusions and reveals who you truly are beneath the layers of expectation and fear. You don't become strong because life was easy. You become strong because life demanded you to rise when you didn't think you could. That's the real transformation. Think about it. Every version of yourself that grew, that evolved, that became wiser came from a moment of pain. The heartbreak that taught you self-respect, the loss that taught you gratitude, the rejection that redirected you towards something better. Pain refines you. It strips away your weaknesses and sharpens your soul, but only if you let it. The truth is, pain by itself doesn't make you powerful. Your response to pain does. You can let it define you, or you can let it drive you. You can let it break your heart, or you can let it open it. You can let it close you off, or you can let it teach you compassion. Power isn't about pretending you're not hurt. It's about standing in your hurt and saying, even this will not destroy me. When you learn to channel your pain into purpose, you become unstoppable. The things that once made you crumble start to fuel your growth. You stop fearing endings because you've learned they're just beginnings in disguise. You stop seeing pain as something to escape, and you start seeing it as something to use. Because when you turn pain into power, you stop being the victim of your story, and you become the author of it. And that's where real freedom begins. Silence speaks louder than words, always has, always will. There comes a point when you realize that explaining yourself no longer serves a purpose. You've said all that needed to be said, tried every way to make them understand, but your words kept falling on deaf ears. So you stop talking, not out of anger, but out of peace. That silence, that calm withdrawal, becomes the loudest statement you'll ever make. Because silence has a language of its own, one that echoes truth louder than arguments ever could. When you choose silence, you shift the power. You're no longer reacting, you're reclaiming your control. Silence says, I've learned my worth, and I no longer need to convince you of it. It speaks of strength, of boundaries, of wisdom. It's the voice of someone who has stopped begging to be understood and has started choosing inner peace over external approval. Most people fear silence because they confuse it with weakness. But silence is not the absence of power. It's the presence of clarity. It's what happens when you stop wasting your energy trying to change what's unchangeable. When you stop proving your value to those who only see it when it benefits them, your silence tells the world that you have finally learned when to speak, and more importantly, when to walk away. In relationships, silence can be a mirror. It reflects what words have been trying to hide. When you step back, the other person suddenly has to face themselves, their actions, their choices, their impact. Your absence of reaction forces them to hear the sound of their own behavior echoing in the space you left behind. And that sound, that realization, often hits harder than any confrontation ever could. Silence also creates space for healing, for reflection, for rediscovery. It allows your energy to reset, your heart to breathe, your mind to clear. Because not every battle deserves your response, and not every wound needs to be reopened with words. Sometimes silence is the closure you give yourself when others refuse to give it to you. So when you choose silence, don't mistake it for surrender. It's strength in its purest form, a calm, steady power that says, I know my worth and I don't need noise to prove it. The right ones will never need you to prove your value. That's one of the most freeing truths you'll ever learn when you've spent years over-giving, over-explaining, and over-proving yourself to people who only saw fragments of your worth. This realization feels like a deep breath after a long storm. The right people, whether in love, friendship, or work, don't need convincing. They see you, they feel your energy, respect your presence, and appreciate your effort without demanding you to shrink or perform to earn their approval. The wrong ones will always make you feel like you're too much or not enough, too emotional, too ambitious, too opinionated, too quiet. They'll measure your worth through convenience and control. But the right ones, they'll never make you feel like loving you is work. They'll make you feel seen in your silence, valued in your vulnerability, and respected in your boundaries. But you don't have to negotiate your self-worth. It's already understood. When you meet people who align with your truth, everything feels lighter. Conversations flow effortlessly. Presence replaces pressure. You're not tiptoeing around rejection. You're walking in mutual respect. You realize that connection isn't about chasing. It's about matching. And that's when you finally understand that peace isn't found in convincing others to see your light, but in surrounding yourself with those who already do. The right people won't fear your strength. They'll be inspired by it. They won't dim your light. They'll protect it. They'll celebrate your boundaries because they have their own. They'll give without keeping score, listen without judgment, and love without conditions. Being around them feels safe, not because they're perfect, but because they honor who you are without needing to change you. And here's the truth. When you stop trying to prove your worth, the people who never deserved your energy will naturally fall away. That's not loss, that's alignment. You'll no longer attract those who feed on your effort. You'll attract those who match it. So stop performing for acceptance. Stop chasing validation. The right ones will recognize your value effortlessly because they operate on the same frequency. They won't ask you to prove your worth. They'll remind you of it. And that's when you'll realize that the right connections don't drain you, they restore you. In the end, walking away isn't just about leaving someone behind. It's about walking back to yourself. It's about realizing that peace, self-worth, and inner strength are not gifts others can give you. They are choices you make for yourself every single day. Every moment you decide not to chase, not to beg, not to lower your standards, you step closer to the life and love you truly deserve. When you walk away, you're not running from something weak. You're running towards something stronger, your own truth. You're rewriting your story not as the one who waited to be seen, but as the one who finally saw themselves clearly. Through every heartbreak, every disappointment, and every moment of silence, you've been learning how to protect your energy, how to transform pain into purpose, and how to recognize the difference between attention and appreciation. The lesson isn't about revenge or regret, it's about realization. The realization that your presence was never the problem. It was your willingness to stay where you were unseen. Once you understand that, your walk away becomes a declaration of power, not loss. You stop seeking closure from others because you've already given it to yourself. You begin to understand that your energy, your love, and your time are sacred currencies, and they should be spent only where they multiply, not where they disappear. The people who truly see you will never need reminders of your worth. They will stand beside you without needing explanations, without making you prove yourself. And those who don't, they'll fade into the background, replaced by the peace that comes from honoring your own boundaries. You no longer chase what's temporary, you attract what's meant to stay. Walking away, then, is not an ending, it's an awakening. It's the moment you realize that strength isn't found in how tightly you hold on, but in how gracefully you let go. You stop measuring love by how long it lasts and start measuring it by how much it respects you. You learn that silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. You discover that solitude isn't loneliness, it's clarity. And you finally see that every loss was really a redirection, leading you home to yourself. So as this message comes to a close, remember this: your worth was never dependent on someone else's recognition. You were valuable before they noticed you, and you'll remain valuable long after they forget. Keep walking with grace, with strength, with peace, because when you walk away, you don't lose them, you find you. Thank you for listening. Keep your heart steady, your boundaries strong, and your spirit unshakable. Until we meet again, take care, stay true,